morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the places at Hawk Blogger. And I want to wish everybody who is waking up to celebrate a Merry Christmas, a very Merry Christmas. I hope you're all having a wonderful start to your holiday. And everybody who's celebrating Hanukkah tonight, first night, happy Hanukkah to you. And anyone who's celebrating any other holidays, happy holidays to you. It is the time of year where people are either happy or very sad, and probably all things in between. But while my family is still sleeping, I am awake and getting ready to head off to the airport to fly out to Chicago in just a few hours to watch the Seattle Seahawks face the Chicago Bears on a Thursday night football game. Today we get a couple football games on during Christmas Day. We'll see how Netflix does with that after what was a pretty disastrous showing of their technology streaming the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. But something tells me they'll have a little bit better luck today during those games. But what I'm going to be focused on today is your first look preview of the Seahawks versus the Chicago Bears, and a matchup that I think is pretty fun. I think when we started the season, I thought I circled this game as potentially a very tough one, but very hard to really know. People forget that coming into this season, the Chicago Bears were a team a lot of folks had making the playoffs, being a surprise NFC team. And for Bears fans, that has unfortunately not turned out to be the case. They fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. They fired their head coach, Matt Eberflus. They had to answer questions about whether they were going to fire their general manager, who they have, at least for the time being, kept employed. And they have lost 9 straight games coming into this contest against the Seahawks. And that includes home games against the Rams, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Packers, the Vikings, and then the Lions. So you heard some names in there that are not particularly talented teams, the Patriots being one of them. The Patriots beat this Bears team 19-3. That is a pretty bad result there. They lost to the Cardinals team that the Seahawks have beat twice. That was in Arizona, but they lost 29-9 in that game. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, 35-16. Again, not a particularly good team. They lost to that Carolina Panthers team, also not a great team. They lost 36-10 at home to the Carolina Panthers. So they have certainly struggled. Their last few games, not particularly close. They lost 38-13 in San Francisco. They lost 30-12 against the Vikings in Minnesota. I'd say that game was a little bit closer than the score indicates, but still lost by quite a bit. And then they just most recently lost to the Detroit Lions 34-17. So the last time they played a game that was close was back right around Thanksgiving, like November 28th. On Thanksgiving against the Lions, where they lost 23-20. That was the game that got Matt Eberflus fired, if you recall, when there was a pretty big mix-up or mistake at the end of that game without calling a timeout, letting time expire, and the the Bears really just blew it in all sorts of ways in that one. But this is a team that is kind of not what you think when you first look at them, because you'd think, oh, they've got a rookie quarterback. He's clearly struggling. The offense is clearly struggling. But if you look at some of what Caleb Williams has done, he's had a pretty credible rookie year by a lot of metrics. And if you watch him play, he's made some fantastic throws and looked precocious at times as a rookie signal caller. But He's also led the NFL in sacks. So this is a guy who, if you look at his general numbers, he's completing 62% of his passes, which is not great, but he's got over 3,000 yards. He's got 19 touchdowns against only 5 interceptions. That's a remarkably good interception rate for any quarterback, let alone a rookie. 6.5 yards per attempt, not great. So a lot of kind of shorter passes for him. And I think that is something to kind of be aware of with Caleb Williams. And then again, this sack rate of over 10%, 60 sacks on the year, playing behind what is not a good offensive line. I'll talk about some of the changes that have happened to that offensive line and some of the challenges that they are facing. But even with the offensive line situation, Caleb Williams has been somebody who, he's not like one of the guys that takes the longest in the league to throw the football, but he is somebody who, unfortunately for the Bears and for Bears fans, is someone who will take sacks. He will take sacks. And so we will see a little bit more about that as I kind of break down a little bit further in this one, what's going on with Caleb Williams and what's going on with that Bears offense. Before I get into all this, let me remind you, if you haven't already, give the show a like, click subscribe. I would appreciate it. Obviously, lots of folks take the holidays off, stop sports radio, they stop, content creation. I'm not, and one-man crew. So really, really appreciate, the little things, a like, a subscribe, becoming a member at patreon.com/hawkblogger, or, supporting one of our sponsors at JK Boots using code hawkblogger to get 10% off, or FTN Fantasy using promo code HBAM gets you 15% off. All those things are greatly appreciated. So as I was starting to say, one of the things that's interesting about the Bears is this has been actually a really good defense a lot of the year. And then once Matt Eberflus was fired, things just cratered. They were a top 10 defense in terms of success rate before Eberflus was fired, allowing basically a 41% success rate. And again, remember, success rate is a measure of whether you're getting the requisite yardage on each down that constitutes a successful play. It's a pretty good metric to assess overall quality of a team on offense or on defense. So being a top 10 team in success rate on defense is a good indicator that this was a quality defense. Well, since Matt Eberflus was fired, they are allowing a 51% success rate. That is the second highest in the league. So they went from being a top 10 defense in success rate to being one of the worst 2 defenses in the NFL since then. One of the things that's happened along the way, an interesting insight there, is they have dropped their man coverage rate and had a higher missed tackle rate. So what does that indicate? Well, the man coverage rate could be something to do with the new person calling plays and what kind of plays he feels most comfortable in. But the missed tackle rate, that absolutely probably indicates effort. It's a little hard to play defense and to give up your body when you know the season's lost, when you know that the coach that you're playing for probably has no say in what you're going to be doing next year. So other than putting on film for the next person that's going to employ you or the next person that's going to coach you, it's a little harder to come up with that motivation to be your best. And that might change in this game because the Bears will be playing on prime time. Players will know this is probably their last chance to earn a contract or to earn a little bit more money, because someone's going to be watching. This will be the only game on at the time. They'll be watching this game, and maybe someone can earn a little bit more. So there is some pride that kicks in, and then you add in the primetime game. We might see a better performance from the Bears defense than what they've done of late, but just wanted to make note that the Bears defense has really, really fallen off since earlier in the year when they were quite good. So a couple other things that caught my attention when I was looking at this game between the two teams. Early downs, we've talked about this over the last few weeks against the NFC North foes in Green Bay and Minnesota, both excellent teams in their own right. And the interesting thing here is that the Bears are a team that struggles on early down defense. So they are in the 15th percentile for early down EPA. They give up a fair amount of big plays on early downs. They are also a team, we'll talk about this in a little bit, that gives up quite a few explosive plays on the ground, in the air. Doesn't really matter. And overall, they're in the 28th percentile in EPA per rush. So this is a team that absolutely can be vulnerable on the ground. Jervin Dexter, senior, who is one of their younger defensive tackles, their best defensive tackle, has missed the last two games with a knee injury. He did practice in a limited capacity yesterday, so they might be getting him back for this game. That would be a big addition for them. But on the other side of the coin, an interesting thing here is the Seahawks early down defense. You may not know this, is in the 9th percentile. So you've got the 15th percentile early down defense for the Bears and the 9th percentile early down defense for the Seahawks. So a key aspect for this Seahawks defense is how they are going to be able to perform on these early downs. And it's certainly something that they have improved on over the year. I've talked to you that since week 9, they've been one of the best defenses in early downs. But as I look at it across the season, I'm going to update my metrics that I'm looking at right now. The Seahawks rank 28th in the NFL in early down EPA. When you go to success rate, they're 25th on early downs. So, this is a situation where you're kind of getting two of the worst early down defenses, at least across the season, going up against one another. So I think early downs is always an interesting aspect to look at. If I limit this to week 9 and later, which is when I really think things changed for the Seahawks, honestly, still 19th in early down EPA. They do rise to 14th in success rate. So early down continues to be a bit of a bugaboo for the Seahawks defense. The Bears, since week 9, dead last, 32nd in the NFL in EPA per play, 31st in the NFL in success rate per play on those early downs. So just a little bit of an oddity, I guess, something that you might not have known, knowing that the Seahawks have been playing pretty darn well overall on defense. Early downs continue to be an issue for this defense. And, maybe the positive here, if you're a Seahawks fan, is the Bears offense has not been a great early down offense. So they're 37th percentile in early down offense. So, if I switch over and I look at the Bears and where they rank in early down offense, and if this is just since week 9, the Bears are 24th in EPA per play. And they are, double checking here, they are 28th in success rate on early down. So again, Not exactly the offense that can necessarily really exploit that early down weakness for the Seahawks, but still, going up against a bad early down defense can mean that you play above your football card, so to speak, in those situations. So early downs, always a really key aspect of any matchup. Here it's a little bit of a pillow fight in that case. The Seahawks early down offense has been okay. The Seahawks from across the full season are a decent early down offense. As I look at it, the Seahawks 18th in EPA per play, and 15th in success rate in those early downs. So they may be able to exploit that a little bit more than a Bears team that's pretty bad in that regard. The other thing to know about this matchup is that the Bears are a team that really struggles in sustaining drives. So they are a team that ranks in the 20th percentile in sustained drives. They're going up against a defense in the Seahawks that ranks 72nd percentile in that regard. So the Seahawks defense would seem to have a pretty big edge in that regard, and something to be aware of. Another thing to kind of know, you might not know this about Geno Smith's completion rate. While we're all focused on some of the interceptions and some of the things that have not gone well of late, his completion rate has climbed back up over 70% on the year, one of, I think, 4 quarterbacks in that range. And a lot of that has come against zone defenses. Well, Geno Smith has completed 73.7% of his passes against zone coverage this year. That is the 5th highest rate in the NFL against zone coverage. He has the 3rd highest completion percentage over expected when facing zone. And the reason this matters, besides just an interesting tidbit, is the Bears have utilized zone coverage on 80% of dropbacks. That is the 4th highest rate in the league. And the Bears have been pretty good in zone. They have allowed a 64% completion percentage. That's the 2nd lowest rate on zone coverages. So you've got a little bit of a strength versus strength going on there. And Geno Smith being someone who's been pretty efficient in completing passes against zone, and a Bears defense that has excelled in limiting completions against zone. You've got 3 good corners. I think maybe, depending on your perspective, 4 good corners for the Bears. Their best corner on defense, maybe their best player on defense, is Jalen Johnson, who's a really solid cornerback. You've got then from there Kyler Gordon, who I think is also a solid corner. And then a player to be aware of, Terrell Smith, has been getting more snaps of late and has played pretty well. Tyreek Stevenson is a little bit of the unfortunate player for the Bears who was taunting Commanders fans before the Commanders completed a Hail Mary to win. And Stevenson has started to get fewer and fewer reps. And Terrell Smith has stepped up. So I think you've got 3 solid cover corners in that game. That is one of the better cornerback trios that the Seahawks have faced of late. The other thing to know about this game, just in general, is it has been, I want to say, 8 straight games that the Seahawks have not been favored to win. Let me just double check that. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excuse me. It's been 10 straight games that the Seahawks have not been favored to win. And they are favored in this game. So the last time the Seahawks were favored to win a football game was at home against the Giants back in week 5. And obviously they did not win that game. Beyond that, there were 3 other games the Seahawks were favored in this entire season. They did win all of those games. That was their first 3 games. So this is the first time in a long time that the Seahawks face an opponent that even Vegas believes Seattle is better than. The Seahawks, even as underdogs, or there's a couple games against the Jets and against Arizona where it was even. It was not a favorite in one direction or the other, and the Seahawks won both of those games. They also won 3 other times where they were underdogs during that stretch. 4 other times where they were underdogs during that stretch, but this is a Bears squad that is, they are not great from almost any angle. And so you've got a Seahawks team that is a favorite for the first time in 10 games. We've got a super chat here from Colin Lundstrom, one of our most generous folks. Says, "Merry Christmas to everybody. Hawk Blogger Mornings for the win." Well, appreciate you, Colin. Thank you for the super chat, man. Really, really appreciate it. There are a number of familiar faces in this game, and so we will talk about that in just a moment. Let me actually try to bring this up for everybody. So Tail of the Tape is up on hawkblogger.com if you want to check that out. Highly recommend it. So some of the familiar faces in this game: Travis Homer, former Seahawks running back. Darrell Taylor obviously was traded by the Seahawks to the Bears early this year. A lot of people freaking out about it. I don't think that has been something that the Seahawks regret. Jacob Martin, a guy that I used to really like on the Seahawks, formerly traded for, among other players. He was part of a package for Jadeveon Clowney, if you remember back in the day, so a Seahawks draft pick. Jake Curran, we're going to talk about him a little bit more. He is going to be a member of the Bears for this game. Gerald Everett, the tight end for the Bears, as well as Rome Odunze, the University of Washington receiver. So some familiar faces for sure. But the thing that I wanted to call out is that Braxton Jones, the Bears starting left tackle, was lost to injury in this last game against the Lions. That's a really big loss. He's a high quality left tackle. The other part of it is their left guard, Tevin Jenkins, has been battling injuries most of the year, different ailments, but he came out. It's looking like he will not play. And so Jake Curran came in and played left guard. So you're talking about a situation where the left tackle and the left guard are likely going to be out for this game. So the whole left side is going to be not at full strength. And that's an area where I think the Seahawks certainly will try to attack. On the Seahawks side, from an injury perspective, Kenneth Walker did not practice yesterday. I think it would be a surprise if he plays on a short week after injuring his ankle. Zach Charbonnet did practice fully, which is a good sign, but don't be surprised if Kenny McIntosh and George Halani play a larger role in this game than they have up until now. So keep an eye on that. That could be, I think, especially George Halani. That's a guy that, depending on Charbonnet's situation, George Halani could get the most, run that he's had all year if Charbonnet really is limited. Now, if you go into the DVOA view, this is the first time for people that have been tuning in to First Look. It is the first time in a while that there's this much green for the Seahawks in any matchup. So DVOA is fond of the Seahawks in this matchup. They're fond of the Seahawks, whether it's on offense or on defense. This is looking at the Bears offense versus the Seahawks defense. That is where DVOA sees the largest advantage from one side of the ball to the other. The Bears offense, a 25th ranked DVOA offense overall against what is almost a top 10 defense for the Seahawks at 11. The Bears run offense, 24th. The Bears pass offense, 23rd. The Seahawks defense is 11th. It's all around 11 run, 11 pass, 11 overall. And so that is where there's the biggest mismatch from a DVOA perspective. Reminder, use promo code HBAM to get 15% off ftnfantasy.com subscription, gets you access to DVOA. I clearly am a subscriber, highly, highly recommend it. I think it's a great gift to give as well. And so this is a situation where, you know, the Seahawks defense really should be the best unit on the field overall. They've gotten off to some slow starts as of most recently. And I think this is a game where that would be a really unfortunate trend to continue. You'd hope that they kind of take the life out of the Bears from the very beginning. But this is a Bears team that's going to be fighting for respect and to end a 9-game losing streak. So you just, you know, the defense is the group that should be able to take the life out of the Bears, but also could be the group that breathes life into them if not careful. On offense, the Bears defense right now, 27th in DVOA overall, 30th against the run. Hey, are the Seahawks going to actually run the football? I mean, I think that that's a critical part of this game. You're playing on a short week. You've got a Bears team. It's going to be cold. It's not supposed to snow, but it's going to be cold. It's going to be in the 40s. You know, you got a Bears team that has not been showing the same amount of will to tackle as they have earlier in the year. Can you punish them? And so far this year, we have not seen Ryan Grubb willing to stick with that. But this is an opportunity for them to really come out and just batter them with the run game. This is a Bears team that plays a lot of cover 3. And if that's the case, there's going to be opportunities to run the ball against them. They're not going to have a safety in the box. They are going to have a safety in the box at times. I think that's also a reason to think that DK Metcalf could have a big game against the Bears. One of the things that I noticed in looking at the Bears is just there have been some really big games for receivers against the Bears, especially as also tight ends. So George Kittle had a big game against the Bears. I think TJ Hawkinson had a big game against the Bears. I think there is yards to be had up the seams in that Bears defense. So again, DVOA likes the Bears in very few aspects here. One of the only places where they have an advantage is on special teams. They have the 9th ranked DVOA special teams. The Seahawks are at 12. And then the Bears are number 3 in the NFL from a DVOA perspective in defending wide receiver 1s. They're number 3 in the NFL in defending wide receiver 3s. They are number 31 in defending wide receiver 2s. So there are yards to be found through the air at the receiver spot. But there's also, like I said, there's some quality cover corners in the Bears defense, and that's not as much of a clear advantage as you might think. When the Seahawks have the ball, you've got a situation where, again, on offense, there are a few places where the Seahawks have some advantages that they haven't had of late. Seahawks 14th in yards per game, the Bears 26th. The Seahawks 13th in yards per play, the Bears 31st in yards per play. So why do they have such a big yards per play? Take a look at explosive plays for the Bears defense. They are 29th in the NFL in giving up explosive passes. They are 25th in the NFL in giving up explosive rushes. So this is a team where you can get big plays You just can get big plays against this team. The Seahawks like to hunt for big plays. Ryan Grubb and the Seahawks offense, 5th in the NFL in explosive passes. This is a game for DK Metcalf. This is a game where DK Metcalf is going to get some opportunities to make big plays. Don't be surprised if he gets a few of those. Could be a game for Noah Fant as well. This is a team that's given up a lot of yards to tight ends. Also, a couple other places where the Seahawks have some sizable advantages, again, through the air. Seahawks are 4th in the NFL in pass yards per game. The Bears, 23rd in the NFL in that category. Seahawks, 14th in yards per attempt. Bears, 31st in yards per attempt allowed on defense. So, a lot of pretty ugly numbers for this Bears defense. And this is a team that has given up quite a few points to their opponents throughout this season. So as I look at it, oh my gosh, the Bears have given up over 30 points to 4 of their last 5 opponents. They've given up 23 points or more to all 5 of their last opponents. This is just a situation where the Seahawks offense, had a pretty good game against that Vikings defense. Short week, injured Geno Smith, injured running back position. We'll see how they do there, but there should be points to be had against the Bears. As we keep going down here, I will point out from a matchup perspective, Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, quality edge players. Darrell Taylor certainly will be his most motivated self to try to show his former team what they're missing. So those are guys to watch out for. But when the Bears have the ball on offense, their biggest strength is that they just don't turn the ball over. They are number 4 in the NFL in giveaways. The Seahawks are 20th in the NFL in takeaways. So that's an area where the Bears have had some good fortune in keeping control of the ball in that regard. As I mentioned before, one of the problems is that they have had trouble keeping the ball because their third down rate, 31st in the NFL in third down rate. So they do not sustain drives. And we go, wait a second. Sorry. Someone's saying that there is a big bit of news. So let me go find out. Yeah, okay. So news that is breaking right now is that Adam Schefter is reporting that Pete Carroll has expressed interest in the Bears head coaching job and would like to return to the sideline next season. So that is not a surprise. That is not a surprise. The fact that Pete Carroll has expressed interest does not mean the Bears are also interested. I think that he certainly has familiarity with Caleb Williams from USC. He knows that he's got a situation where there's a quarterback and there's some good talent on that Bears squad. I think they could do a lot worse than Pete Carroll to build that program. So I hope Pete Carroll gets his next job. I hope that he succeeds in his next job and wish him nothing but the best. But interesting. I would be surprised. We've seen Bill Belichick kind of be denied by the NFL. I don't know if teams want to bet on building with one of these older coaches, even if I think that those coaches are very good and have a lot to offer. Are you going to bet your franchise with your young, what will be his second year quarterback on what would be the oldest head coach in the NFL? It's not just this year. You're betting on 3, 4, 5 years of that. And so I wish Pete the best. I don't know if that interest is going to be reciprocated, but thanks for the heads up. And yes, interesting to see. So getting back to when the Bears have the ball on offense, as I was saying, 31st in the NFL in third down rate. And I mentioned they're also one of the worst in the NFL in sustaining drives. They are 31st in the NFL in yards. They're 31st in the NFL in yards per play. So this is just an inefficient offense. They struggle in many regards. Their running game, 25th in the NFL in rushing yards, 25th in the NFL in yards per rush, 26th in rush EPA. So it's not a good running team. It's not an efficient passing team. A lot of short passes. They are 22nd in the NFL in explosive passes, 26th in explosive rushes. So again, you're talking about kind of a team that just doesn't do a lot of big damage. And you'd have to hope that the Seahawks defense will be able to keep the plays in front of them. And I think the idea of Mike Macdonald's scheme and the complexity of what he brings going against Caleb Williams, you'd think would not bode well for that offense. I think the Vikings are an interesting comparison. And it's worth noting, you know, they only scored 12 points against the Vikings the last time they played, 284 yards, only 171 yards passing. But the first time they played the Vikings, they scored 27 points in that game and had 400 yards, 320 yards passing. So now, I wouldn't say the Vikings are the same style of defense as the Seahawks and Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald does not blitz nearly as much as Brian Flores, but there is some similarity in terms of disguises and complexity. So, yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one to follow. So they've got great receivers. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen is older and heavier and maybe not quite the same player, but still a threat. And then Rome Odunze is obviously, he's having a really high quality rookie season, and Cole Kmet is a good tight end for them. DeAndre Swift can be a tackle avoider, but generally speaking, he is just going to get the yards that are blocked. And with the left half of their offensive line out, I think one of the things you really have to like and think about is, you know, are you going to get Leonard Williams lined up on the outside a little bit? Are they going to try to overwhelm that left side of the Bears line? That could be enough to create some turnovers, some sacks, some negative plays, and just make life a little bit miserable. And I would say that the rest of the Bears' interior offensive line is not that great either. Their right tackle is a decent player, but as far as the rest of the line goes, there's definitely some vulnerability there. Again, special teams wise, you know, relatively even. Bears have had a good year in that regard from a kicking perspective. Michael Dixon is up to 5th in the NFL in net yards per punt, which is he was down there at like 27th. I still will let folks know Michael Dixon is toward the bottom of the NFL in percentage of kicks that are touchbacks. So he is kicking more touchbacks than you'd want to see. And his percentage inside the 20 is also lower than what you'd want to see. But, you know, it is what it is. And the Bears, you know, they have not been a particularly good return team, although they do have some decent quality in terms of kick returns at 9th in the NFL. So that's really, when you look at this matchup, what it's probably going to come down to is whether the Seahawks can overcome the intangibles that they're facing in this game to just be themselves. I don't think they have to be something else. They just have to be themselves, and that should be enough to win. But the intangibles in this game that favor the Bears, Seahawks traveling on a short week. There are, you know, of the times that teams have traveled for Thursday night football this year, you know, they are just 3-2. Road favorites on Thursday night football this year are just 3-2 on the year. For what it's worth, the Seahawks have been favored 3 times on the road on Thursday night football in their history. they're 3-0 in those games. They've won all those games. They haven't been a favorite in one of those games since 2017, but each one of those games was either in Arizona or against San Francisco. So you're talking about short travel. And in this case, you're talking about a team that's going to have to travel quite a bit during a holiday week, coming off a pretty crushing loss to the Vikings. And you've got a hobbled quarterback. You're missing your top running back. You know you've lost control of your playoff destiny. And then you got a Bears team that maybe this is the last hurrah for them to make a point to the rest of the league, to make an impression for other GMs and coaches. You'll probably get the best effort you're going to get from the Bears in this game, who want to end their 9-game losing streak. So intangible-wise, I think things favor the Bears. Talent-wise, coaching-wise, there's no doubt that they favor the Seahawks. Expect the Bears to do the unexpected in this game. You could see fake punts. You could see, things that come from a team that has nothing to lose, because they really don't at this point. So Caleb Williams will know that he has to be off script because of the state of his offensive line. But if you just look at this objectively and you look at the different matchups, the Seahawks should be in very good shape to win this game and win it somewhat comfortably. Don't know if that's going to happen. I think the run game is going to be a key part of that. And so far, there's only been one game where the Seahawks have really committed to the run, and that was in Arizona a few weeks ago. That really helped them win that game comfortably. I see this as a similar situation, but we just have not seen Ryan Grubb willing to commit, even when having success, like they were having against the Vikings early. They're running the ball well. It just goes away from it. So it's gonna be something that's interesting to watch. Let's hope everybody comes out healthy, and then they will get a nice long break before the final game of the season against the LA Rams. All right, everybody. I appreciate everybody who has tuned in on this Christmas Day and the first night of Hanukkah coming up. Happy for everybody who's celebrating. Happy for everybody who's not. Go ahead and buy yourself a gift if you haven't already over at JK Boots. Use code HawkBlogger. Get 10% off. The best pair of boots you will ever own. Also get a chance to win a Seahawks-themed pair of boots. I'll give those away before the end of the season, which is coming up soon. And then help to donate another pair of boots to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation, where we've already given away 3 pairs of boots to wildland firefighters, and really, really appreciate what we're doing there and what JK Boots is doing there. So appreciate that. Appreciate all of you as well. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you give the show a like, click subscribe. I'm going to head out to the airport, and we'll see you tomorrow, probably. I don't think we're going to do Real Hawk Talk tonight. Jeff and I were kind of talking about it. Probably won't happen. But have a happy holiday, and I will talk to you all tomorrow morning. Take care.